Awesome. Rock and roll. All right. So, where we're going to pick up today is at the very bottom paragraph of page 18. And we're in the chapter, There is a Solution. And this is what we're talking about, the solution and what it looks like. And what we're diving into today is what they call, and I was joking about this before, in parts of Canada, I stole it from the Canadians, of which I am one, but very specifically the Ontarians. They absolutely love it when I call them that, and nobody's actually ever corrected me, so I keep doing it. But out in Ontario, I heard them refer to this part of the book as that. And what it's called for them is the sponsorship contract. Another way to look at it is it describes who I need to be and how I need to show up to carry this message. And do you want me to dive in first, Terry? We forgot to flip the coin. Cool, sounds good. So, first off, it says that the man who is making the approach. And the first thing I want to point out about that is I got to make the approach. I've got to reach out to the newcomer. It's wonderful to put my number in the chat. It's wonderful to raise my hand at meetings to say that I can sponsor, but I've got to go a lot further than that, or at least a little bit further. At least on Zoom, can I try to get their number and reach out to them? I've got to reach, because sometimes I've heard in places, well, I don't want what they have. They've got to reach out to me. Girl, I don't say that. That would be a little too aggressive. Girl, but my life, if we get there in time, my life depends on helping others. My life depends on carrying this message. I've got to reach out to them. Now on Zoom in 2025, I don't even have to wear pants to carry the message. I am. I promise you, I got pants. Like camera on, page 18, bottom paragraph. And so if I can show up in the comfort of my home, in my PJs, you know what I mean? The least I can do is get their number. And if you're braving the cold outdoors to go to a meeting, still get their number too. All right. So the man who is making the approach, I'm called to approach, has had the same difficulty. So we have that common problem. We have that manifestation of the allergy. We have the mental obsession. That's what we're talking about. That he obviously knows what he is talking about. So I'm showing up properly armed with facts about myself. That's what I'm showing up with. And I get that by, like Terry talks about so much, the mirrors. I mirror my experience with what's in the book. Can I share my experience with the allergy, the obsession, with the spiritual awakening and the program of recovery? That's what I'm called to. And then it says that his whole deportment shouts at the new prospect that he is a man with a real answer. And man, that is such an important line. At least for me, I love that line. Now, I can get a little enthusiastic, and sometimes I don't have very good volume control. So I want you to know that I'm not yelling at you. I promise I'm not yelling. And that my job is not to yell at newcomers. It's a little jarring. And you know what it's like. I've been talking about this a lot lately. You guys know when you go to a meeting and there's somebody that's been sober a while and they are miserable and they're just angry. And if you want what I have, you gotta do what I've done. And it's like, oh, no, thank you. No, thank you. I don't want that. You're a fire hazard. I don't want to have a cigarette next to you because you are dry. And so I am not meant to yell at people. I'm not meant to shout at them. But what is called to shout is my deportment. Now, my deportment is how I show up, how I carry myself. To be a demonstration, I've got a 1930s dictionary because I'm fun at parties. And in my 1930s dictionary, the definition of deportment is our conduct, our behavior. It's not based on whether or not I wear a suit and tie. It's not based on whether or not I got, mascara, or it's not based on any of that. It is based on how I carry myself. Now, I had learned a long time ago, if you're thinking about asking somebody to be your sponsor, a good way to get a good gauge of whether you should or not is go see how they act in business meetings. Ooh, you know what I mean? Ooh, how is their deportment in a business meeting? Ooh, I'm sure I didn't call anyone out, but that's usually a good gauge as that. And I love that it says deportment because I'm called to be a demonstration, not to tell you my ideas or my opinions or my beliefs, but to be a living demonstration of this power, a living demonstration of this program. That is who I need to be, not just so that I can stay sober, but that is who I need to be so that other people can stay sober. I have a responsibility to those that are new, that are suffering. So it says a real answer, that he has no attitude of holier than thou, that I'm not up here on a spiritual mountaintop. I promise you I'm not on a pedestal. They are not wheelchair accessible, and that is not ADA compliant. So no thank you, no pedestals. That instead that we are shoulder to shoulder in this common journey. To show up, man, if you want this thing, I promise I will do everything I can to help. And it says nothing whatever except a sincere desire to be helpful. And I love that. Helpful, useful, not fix, not manage, not change, not control, not play God, helpful. And it says that there are no fees to pay, no fees to pay. Thank goodness. Because when I work with sponsees, we meet every day. They'd be like, "Girl, you just want to increase those fees." And I promise you, I didn't come here with a lot of disposable income, so I couldn't have afforded it. No fees to pay, no axes to grind. So we're not going to sharpen our weapons and go after anyone. No people to please. No people to please. No lectures to be endured. Now, I will say the alternative name for this big book study, Lunacy Commission, is also Tangents Anonymous. So you don't have to endure a lecture, but you might have to stick it out through a tangent or two. And it says, these are the conditions we have found most effective. So this is who I am called to be effective in carrying this message. Top of page 19. Welcome. So glad you're here. And I always want to have a look, is what I'm doing effective? Is my sobriety multiplying? Am I working with people who are working with people? And if I'm not, it's not live in shame and feel bad. No, it's like, okay, let's see how we can be more effective. So effective. After such an approach, many take up their beds and walk again. And that was a saying that was probably way more popular in the 1930s. And that saying of take up their beds and walk again is a reference to a story in the Bible. And I'm not religious, and so I don't have, I might be misquoting or getting some of the parts of the story wrong. So if I'm wrong, feel free to correct me, genuinely. But the story of where this comes from, of taking up their beds and walk again, there was this pit. I believe it was called the Lazarus pit, and it was this pool of spring water. And as the legend would go, an angel would come down and stir the water. And as the water was stirred, the first person who would leap into the water would be healed. And so the result of that is there would be a lot of people who had disabilities, who had health challenges, and probably metaphors for other challenges that would be by that pool of water. And Howard's got where it's found. He's got it. It would be right by that pool of water. And there was a gentleman who was paralyzed, and he was hanging by that pool of water. And in the story, Jesus came and was asking him, "Do you want to be healed?" And he's like, "Yeah, but listen, I'm paralyzed. There's no way I'm gonna get into the water first." And, I don't have the quote, but essentially in that moment, he was healed by this power. And you don't have to be religious. And if you're hearing me talking about and mentioning that, you get a little twisty and resisty, that's okay. But what is the message from that story for us? And the message of that story for us is that those who are the least likely to get well, get well. Because he had no chance of making it into that water, especially first. And that's my experience. Those of us who are the least likely to recover, to find this new way of life, we get well here. And so over to you, Terry. Pew, pew.
Thank you, Paige. Paige, what's the definition of approach
Oh,
in
I
the
will look
19th
for
page?
you. Yeah, I'll
Thank
look
you.
it up.
Thank you. I also look at this paragraph and it shows how it should show up in the fellowship as well, in meetings. I look at this paragraph and I violated probably every one of them. I think I've made a lot of mistakes as a sponsor. I guess best way I could describe a mistake is that it's an invitation to a lesson learned. If you ever reading chapter 7, working with others, I recommend to look out for the don'ts, do nots, should nots, nevers, and try and practice that all throughout the day. Never talk down to another alcoholic or even your boss or your coworker. I've talked down to coworkers before, right? You know, don't start out as an evangelist. Don't, you know, cooperate, never criticize. Try practicing those things. You'll be a much better communicator with not just people in AA, NA, CA, and all that, but much better friend, you could say, to every one of God's kids. So, um, I mean, I've had a real issue with having an attitude of holier than now for a long time. I was the guy with the big book who thought that the big book was the only path to this power. And I'm walking around with a belief system that if you don't use the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous in AA or in any fellowship, that you're doing it wrong. I would actually I wanted to smack people over big books at one point. But I would look down at you and I would think that I was better than you because I could quote the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Man, I could pull up lines right now and just say it off the top of my head, just like I just did with chapter 7. And I wanted it to sound cool and look cool, and I wanted to be better than you. That was a mistake. That was a mistake that I learned from and have grown from. What about this? What else? No fees to pay? I don't know. Paige is getting how much she charging, Paige? I don't think we're getting paid to do this right now, but there's a reason why we're not getting paid because money doesn't mix well with us. It just doesn't. We do it for fun and for free. I mean, I absolutely enjoy being a teacher. In order to become the greatest student, you have to become a teacher. I'll say that one more time. In order to become the greatest student, you have to become a teacher. And once you start to teach, you start to live this way of life, and it becomes, um, what's the word? I don't know. It just becomes part of you. Let's just say that. You know it. It's like you know how to play an instrument. Anyone know how to play an instrument here? Yeah, raise your hands, probably. Or know a different language, right? You practice this language and you practice this instrument, it grows stronger, right? What happens when you stop? You forget about it. I have a trumpet. I'm pretty good. I can play tequila on the trumpet. Tequila. But I don't know it anymore because I haven't practiced it in probably 10 years, right? But if I picked it up and I started to practice this stuff, I would get stronger, right? Become part of my nucleus. I will know it. It'll be a gnosis. What is this? Know people to please. Who's done that? I have. I wanted to please so many people in AA and CA just because I wanted to be that sponsor that you could go to for advice, that go-to person. I ate that up, right? It was no lectures to be endured. Now I struggled with this. Sometimes it's really difficult to be a listener. Try practicing being a listener. That's also one of my. It was part of my conduct inventory, my sex and sane, my sane and sound ideal was to be a listener. And my sponsor would have me carry around this little note that said, "Be a listener, be a listener, be a listener." And I would ask God to help me be a listener, because I like to talk. Right? Coming from a sales background, I love to talk. Love to hear my own voice sometimes. Now I get kind of excited on what I have to hear, say, because I have no idea what I'm going to talk about today. I just kind of let God demonstrate through me what God could do, but I'm no longer playing a script anymore. I'm trying to ask God to help me shape into this person that they're talking about on page 18. That my whole deportment, my body language just shouts at you. I don't actually have to verbally say anything. I'm like that dude that you could just see I'm lit up. There's something about his eyes. You know about the people who are in the club, right? Being wrecked in the same vessel and restored under one God with hearts and minds attuned to the welfare of others. You know who they are. You could see it in their eyes. Their whole deportment shouts at it. There's something different about them. And that's the thing that I'm attracted to. I'm attracted to the people who are in a recovered state talking about this stuff, who have an actual experience with the steps. and don't like to give opinions based on experiences they never had with the steps, right? I mean, shit, Paige, I used to look up at the steps and say, oh, God could restore, or came to believe a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. I never did the steps, but I would talk about the word could in a meeting. Well, could means that potentially that means I'm insane. And I'll talk about that for 20 minutes with absolutely no experience with step two. I'm just talking out of my ass, which was also a mistake, which I learned from, right? Yeah, what did it say? Since most effective, it has made me a better, effective communicator. It has made me a better friend. It's made me a better family member, you know? And because it says after such an approach, after this new approach that I asked God to help me with, I've seen people pick up their beds and walk again. I've seen me. You're looking at a page, a miraculous demonstration. I love how I was at that convention. I was using your book to speak on it. Thank you, Ping. Man, that was fun. I'll never forget when I came out of the hotel. We were going to the hotel, and then Paige is literally outside bird watching. Like, what is she doing? She's doing a Paigey thing, man. Okay, we'll go to the next page, or next paragraph. None of us make a sole vocation of this work. When they're talking about this work, they're talking about 12-step work, intensive work with other alcoholics, right? No one's making a full job of this, nor do we think its effectiveness would be increased if we did. Shit, I try to self-will my way into helping so many people with 12-step work in order to have this much, let's just say, to feel freer. That didn't work. Didn't increase my sobriety or my recovery or my state of mind or soundness of mind. It did not. All right. So it says we feel the elimination of our drinking is but a beginning. Oh shit. It's a start to be sober. All right. This is one of my favorite lines in the big book. A much more important demonstration, meaning to show, of our principles, which when they're talking about the principles, they're not talking about the principles behind the steps. I don't know who made that up. I mean, there's some great stuff in there, but when they're talking about principles in the big book, they're talking about the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. So a much more important demonstration of our principles or our steps lies before us in our respective homes, occupations, and affairs. And guys, they're in that order for a particular reason. If I'm not demonstrating these principles, showing on how to be a demonstration of the chapter how it works, chapter into action, chapter seven, working with others, and etc. If I'm not being a demonstration of this stuff at home, I'm not going to have a home, drunk or sober, it doesn't matter. If I'm not being a demonstration of these principles, of these steps at work, I'm not going to have a job. I mean, I just talked about it with my home, with Paulie Pocket asked me to speak at 12 weeks on a Tuesday, and I said, yeah, okay. I kind of agreed to it without asking the wifey, but I've learned through bitter experience, through mistakes, where I used to put so much AA way before my family that I would just go say yes to speaking without asking any of my friends or family members or any appointments that I got. And what happened? I started to neglect my family. So now today I ask for permission to speak at meetings before I even do. And what did she say, Paulie? She said no. And who has to say yes to, who has to agree with that, with her decision? Me. Why? Because a much more important demonstration of my principles lies at home. If I continue to say yes to Paulie and other commitments and other people asking me to speak when it's family time, especially on Sunday, I won't have a home. That's what almost happened to me in recovery when I had 3 years sober. Very important. If I'm not practicing or being a demonstration of these principles at work, I'm not going to have a job, man. I have called my boss a clown. He is a clown, by the way. All right. Man, what was it? It's been it's almost a year now. I almost spit on a coworker's car. Does that sound like I'm being a demonstration of the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous at work? Absolutely not. Was I about to spit on this guy's car? Because I had a belief system that I needed money in order to live, and I wasn't willing to let it go, and I knew it was objectionable. But this guy got a good tip, and I was a pizza delivery guy. By the way, I'm a retired pizza delivery boy. And he got the good tip, and you know what, Howard? You know what happened to me? I got angry that he got the good delivery and I did not. Was I supposed to kill him with love and tolerance? Was I supposed to kill him with uh, being a demonstration of these principles with this gentleman? No. I was about to go spit on this guy's car. And it was funny when I was walking towards his car, I had a pause moment. And when I asked God that, for an intuitive thought, that's the cool thing about the pause. It's just kind of grace will come in and it will hit you at any moment. And it's kind of wild. It's just, perhaps I've always had a relationship with this power. I was never aware of it. And in this moment, I was stopped dead in my tracks, about to spit on this dude's car. And it said turn. All I heard was turn. It was like a child's voice. It was like a whisper, you know? How can I tell the difference between my voice and God's voice? God's voice is more of a whisper, whereas my voice is wah 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 wah. And I turned around. Didn't do that. Then I started to demonstrate these principles at work, and I made amends to that gentleman. And afterwards, we became friends. He started to help. He was teaching me how to speak Spanish. I was teaching him how to speak English, and I was no longer disturbed at work. Hmm. What happens if I actually sped on that guy's car? What next? What after that? Who knows? I would have gone down a rabbit hole, right? Right, Janice? I would have probably put a fist in his face. I remember I did a talk on this at Bronx Big Book, and everyone it refers to me as the spitting on the car dude. Spitting on the car dude, yeah. They're like, there's that guy. He's gonna talk about spitting on someone's car. But that's who I am. This is who I am. My whole deportment will shout at you that I'm trying. It's not like I'm trying to be honest. I love being honest today. I love being honest today. I feel free when I do it. There's nothing to hide with me. I lay it all out there for you to absorb. That's the cool thing about doing fifth steps with multiple people. I highly recommend if you ever do a fifth step, do it with not just one person, do it with multiple people. You will become much more honest with more people and of all God's children, every single person that you come across. That's been my experience. And it says a much more important demonstration lies in our respective affairs as well. Now, if I'm not demonstrating these principles in all my affairs, what's going to happen? I'm going to have some type of belief system, like I talked about with money, or some type of old idea, which is an idea that's older than yesterday, right? And I'm going to be so self-consumed and self-absorbed, thinking about me, and whatever's on my mind, and is that I'm going to step on your toes. And I'm gonna step on your toes. You're gonna retaliate. And when you retaliate, I'm gonna say, whoa, 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 how dare you? And I'm gonna get angry. And I go dark when I get angry. When I get real angry, I can go down a rabbit hole. And then I'll go into self-pity and I'll think drink solution, drink answer. Guys, there's 75 pages dedicated to step 12, pages 89 and 164. Read them, study them, make them a way of life. Use those do not, should nots, could nots, and nevers, and try ask God to help you mold into that. And watch your life change in all your affairs. You're going to be less disturbed wherever you go. You'll be free wherever you go. Says all of us have spent much of our spare time in that sort of effort which we are going to describe. A few are fortunate enough to be so situated that they could give nearly all their time to the work. Yet again, 12-step work. When my experience with this sentence was during COVID, when nobody was working. I almost gave nearly all my time to this work because I had the opportunity to do so. And this was a certain trial and certain low spots. I did not survive it. I thrived. I thrived during a period of time in our history where it was pretty low. And we were doing remarkable things. I mean, I mentioned it probably in the beginning of this workshop. I mean, I did a third step prayer with all newcomers, 55 of them, three times, 50 plus people. And we all got on our knees and we thought well before taking that step, making sure we were ready to at last abandon ourselves utterly to God. We all took a moment and we did it together. It was possibly the most powerful thing I've ever done in my life. Do I have the time to do that today? I do not. Why? Because God has asked me to be a family man today. He's asked me to be home today, to be with people that actually need more of my attention and more of my time. I have balance in my life today where I did not have that before, but that's all a process of development when you grow up here. I'll swing it back over to you, Paige. Pew, 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 pew.
Pew, pew.
Actually, in Spanish, it's peo, peo, peo.
Huh? Peo, peo, peo. And I think you know it in, is it like Romanian or something? You know it in one of those languages too. You know who doesn't have balance? This gal. I got vertigo and I got spiritual vertigo. So Carrie asked if I could look up the word approach. Now I want to let you guys know this is a 1930s dictionary that I happen to have. It's not the unofficial official 1930s dictionary. You know what I mean? It's just one that I had. Fun. And so the definition for approach is draw or grow near, approximate, to resemble, come near to the act of drawing near. So to draw near, which I think is a beautiful definition as we talk about approaching God. I need to draw near to God. But again, I've got to reach out to those sponsees. Now, as Terry was talking, I'm like, oh, I feel like vocation is a word that I should 1930s dictionary it. So popping on over vocation, it says a calling, semicolon, occupation. So there's two definitions of it. One is a calling, and that calling, just from my experience with just seeking in a variety of religious and spiritual traditions in my 11th step, that vocation is often for people where they feel God has called them. But also, a vacation is paid employment, that 9 to 5. And so when it talks about none of us makes a sole vocation of this work, I feel more called from my experience to the 9 to 5, pay me my money sort of definition of vocation. And the reason why is because at the end of that paragraph, it talks about how if you are fortunate enough to be so situated, they can give nearly all their time to the work. So to me, that sounds like we're talking more about the 9 to 5 sort of, we wouldn't be more effective if we were paid sort of deal. And I don't know about you. And I have been helped by psychologists, psychiatrists, professionals of various sorts. And I want to be very clear, I'm not belittling that profession. But I'm somebody who shows up and I feel like I'm just this bag of garbage who's completely unworthy of anything. And if you're getting paid, you don't really care. You know what I mean? I'm sure nobody feels like that when they're wrapped up in the bondage of self. Not you guys. You guys are lovely. But this selfish, self-centered little pagey, the pagey poo, that's how I show up when I'm wrapped up in the bondage of self. Just ugh, you know? And so I would not be more effective in working with others if I was paid. And here's how I know this to be true. Anyone ever, I know not you guys, but anyone ever quickly and easily catch a resentment at your job about how you're not appreciated, paid enough? They don't, yeah, yeah, you guys know, right? You put a price tag on it and it's interesting. You put a price tag on it and it cheapens the experience. I would not get paid to do this because I would lose out on the spiritual payment that I get. And immediately I would get resentments about how I'm not appreciated. And so being effective is that I've got no ulterior motive. I'm not doing this for a paycheck. And yeah, I'm not, I'm not catching my work resentments. And when it says we feel that elimination of our drinking is but a beginning, that is some news. That was news to me when I came here. It's like, you wait. I thought all I had to do was get sober. You're telling me sobriety is not a solution? Rude. But we know that to be true. We can hold that up to our own experience because every time I took that first drink, every time I took that first drug, every time I relapsed on that behavior, I was as sober as I am today. But my illness was not treated. Sobriety is not a solution. I need the spiritual experience. And yes, I love that Terry was talking about being that demonstration of the principles in our homes, occupations, and affairs. I'm called to not tell, listen, I'm not here to show up all shiny between the prayers of the meeting. I'm here to be that mirror, that shining God's light outside of the prayers of the meeting. And of course, in the prayer, between the prayers of the meeting. But you know what I mean? It's like, who needs my help? Who needs me to channel the unconditional love and grace and power of God? Who's in front of me? That's who needs it. That's who needs it. I'm called to be a demonstration wherever I go. And yeah, I talk, as you know, Terry, I talk a lot about like, yeah, the principles are the steps. So it's not that I work the steps over here and then I have these little baskets of my various parts of my life compartmentalized over here. No, I bring these 12 steps and the tangible actions of these 12 steps into all areas. Terry, I love that you spoke about the later chapters because I am not married, which is really my gift to everyone. I'm not married. You're welcome. But if you want to know, like, how do I show up and practice these principles, practice the steps with those that are closest to me? Ooh, those later chapters will give us a little lens into how we do it, and they are important. If I do not study them, I will not think it applies to me. Just like if we don't study the chapter, we agnostics will be like, why are you talking about a steel girder? What does electricity have to do with my alcoholism? It's outdated. It doesn't apply. But if you've been studying this book, if you've gone through this, I have a feeling you're like, oh, that's my favorite chapter. Now, I probably can't get you to think Two Wives is your favorite chapter. I know, but I can get you to have a new experience with it where you see its versatility, usefulness. Yeah, Prosy, the prosaic steel girder. I have a little diagram that I made of him. I just made him up as a teaching demonstration tool thing. And when it says all of us, and I want to emphasize all, if you're highlighting, writing in your book, all of us spend much. That's another word to emphasis, all and much of our spare time in the sort of effort we are going to describe. And that effort is, yeah, you know what's up. That sort of effort is 12-step work. So if you guys remember, at the end of the forward to the second edition, it gave some statistics about what the early success rates looked like. And we were seeing about a 75% success rate. So if I want that type of success rate, if I want that type of sobriety, I need to be doing what they were doing. And what they were doing was spending much of their spare time, not all of their spare time. You can have hobbies. And I always talk about how I don't, but well, a little bit. Bird watching is a bit of a hobby, but I mean, that only happens when I'm left alone in the parking lot at a convention. If you're wondering, there wasn't much. There was European starlings, house sparrows, and probably a pigeon, but I was having a great time out there. Literally, I'm sitting in the middle of the parking lot in my wheelchair with binoculars, and Jerry's driving by. I'm like, what are you doing? Bird watching. I'm having a great time. Uh, So if I want what they have, I have got to spend much, not all of my spare time carrying this message to others, working with others in this way. And it talks about a few are so fortunate enough to be so situated that they can give nearly all their time to the work. I am disabled, so that is what I do. And I could have hobbies, but I don't. So yeah. All right, it goes on to say, if we keep on the way we are going, there is little doubt that much good will result. And so the way they were going was at this time in history, one alcoholic carrying this message to another, that word of mouth, carrying the message one to another, to another, to another. And they're saying little good, that much good will result. Like that was effective. It was effective and it was working. But the surface of the problem would hardly be scratched. We wouldn't really be able to help all the people that we need to help. Those of us who live in large cities are overcome by the reflection that close by hundreds are dropping into oblivion every day. And in 2025, I think there are those of us who live in large cities who still feel that feeling that people are dropping into oblivion every day. But what they were saying is one alcoholic helping another in those early days, it was working and it was effective, but they knew their limitations and they could not sponsor everyone, one working with another. And people were dying because they did not find this. They did not have this life-saving message. They did not have the solution. It says many could recover if they had the opportunity we have enjoyed. I just feel called to point out enjoyed. I promise you, the 12 steps are not an enjoyment when I am actively trying to avoid working them. That is not when they're enjoyable. I've never been less happy to do a 4-step when I was avoiding it with everything that was in me. There's nothing less fun than knowing you owe an amends. And then you show up at meetings and like everyone's talking about the 9th step and you get a little twisty and a little resisty in the Tums. You guys know, and you don't know what's up because you would never. But people like me, we know what that's like. um, but enjoyed. If we do this work, you will, like, I promise you will know what a joy it is. Like, if we dive in and have this experience, we will find this joy. How then shall we present that which has been so freely given us? So, how will we share what has been so freely given to us? Well, over to Terry to find out. Payo, 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 pew, pew, pew.
Paige, what's the 1930s definition of shall?
Of which word? Sorry. Oh, shall.
Shall.
I got you.
Shall. I feel like when they say shall, it's much more stronger word. Um, we have concluded to publish an anonymous volume, this book, setting forth the problem as we see it. We shall, what's that word shall, bring to our task our combined experience and knowledge. That's funny because, like, if this book was, I mean, basically the sole author was Bill, but he introduces that he did it with 100 people, quote unquote, Page would say 80, right? Um, but I would argue with him. I mean, like, if it was just him who wrote this book, I'm like, you don't know Jack, Bill. That's your opinion, bro. But I can't argue with 80 or 100 people and their combined knowledge and experience. It just kind of roots out this one versus one, where I'm watching and reading the stories in the back, which was part of your homework, by the way, which was the first instructions of the big book was to read one of the page stories in the back, right? And that's what I'm supposed to do. And see possibly, yeah, I want this program too. And it says this should suggest a useful program for anyone concerned with the drinking problem. Now, I like to take that statement and turn it to a question. Is anyone concerned that they have a drinking problem, or a thinking problem, or a gambling problem? Yeah. What about a sex problem? Been dealing with a lot of sex addicts lately. It's one of our bugaboos, I guess, right? Sex does give us a death threat in the big book where it says sex. We could go out drinking and relapse because of it. It's important. And look at, I told you earlier that when I read the first, all the way up to page 60, really looking to see, am I an alcoholic? Am I an addict? Or am I both? Or am I neither? Just kind of trying to pinpoint what did I lose power, choice, and control with, and also what did I sell my soul to? Because I can't get out of jail if I don't know if I'm in jail in the first place. So, I could go through this book right now with nicotine and then have like a powerful spiritual experience or step one experience with nicotine. So I'll probably do that with you guys because I'm being willing to give up nicotine right now. I'm asking God for the willingness to do it, but I still haven't done it. Uh yeah, back to you, Paige. I'll shut up. I'll be
Oh,
quiet.
no, we'd love you. We love you. Now, on my way to find shell, I found a shadbird, which is a common sandpiper. So I got excited about that. But to tell you what shell actually is, it says aim to, are to, denoting simple oh, I can't pronounce it, denoting something that will happen in the future. So it's like what we're aiming for, what we're seeking is basically summarizing it with, doing my best. And so this anonymous volume, The purpose of it is to carry this message. Now, I don't know if you guys had the kindergarten experience that I had, the telephone game, where we'd sit on the carpet and, I would like come up with something like clever. So that's going to be a stretch, but I'd come up with something and it's like, ooh, I like purple hippopotamus. And I'd say that to the next person who would then whisper it to the next person who would then whisper it to the next person. Then it would come around and be like, pepperoni pizza is my favorite. It'd be like completely the opposite. So part of this book is to carry this message so it doesn't get lost, like my affinity for purple hippopotamuses. Um, I don't really. But that, and I love, yeah, it wasn't so much a combined textbook as Bill wanted it to be. And he really did. He sent it out to different places, and the guys in New York were like, yeah, yeah, Bill, it's great, it's great. And then he would send it out to the guys in Akron, and I don't think Dr. Bob showed it to them even because they didn't want a book. And so there wasn't that quite combined text. But here's the thing. The more of us who have followed the directions that are outlined in this book and have received the promised results, the more of us that are included in the we. So even though it was mostly Bill dictating to Ruth Hawk, who was typing away, I just still believe like there's that group text element because it is replicable. I do the work and I get these exact same results. So and yeah, it's a useful program. The book isn't about theories or ideas or even beliefs. It is about a program. And where do I get the program from? The directions are found in the book. Now it says of necessity. So we need to. There will have to be discussions of matters medical, psychiatric, social, and religious. And this is the book meeting us where we're at. You can almost feel us clutching our pearls like, oh, medical, psychiatric, social, and religious. And the book saying, we are aware that these matters are from their very nature controversial. And this is the book meeting us where we're at and going to take us where we need to go. Nothing would please us so much as to write a book which would contain no basis for contention or argument. Isn't that funny though? Because we will argue about it, won't we? Right? But like what they're talking about is like actual controversy, not like actually this definition of shall is better than that one. Uh, and so it says, we shall do our utmost to achieve that ideal. Now, this is a line that I feel has become more true in years gone by than it was when it was first written. Most of us sense that a real tolerance of other people's shortcomings and viewpoints and a respect for their opinions are attitudes which make us more useful to others. And you see, that is what I am called to do, to be useful. And that word useful, helpful, we're going to see that as we continue on through this book. Again, not fix, not manage, not save, not cure, not control, but to be helpful. And I've got to meet people with compassion and understanding to be able to do this. Now, if you're writing in your book, highlight, underline, stars beside, you want to draw like a rainbow, you want to draw a unicorn, like this is an important line. Our very lives as ex-problem drinkers depend upon our constant thought of others and how we might help meet their needs. Anyone here ever hear it's a selfish program? I don't think that's accurate. My very life is dependent on me not thinking about me. Goodness gracious, there's nobody could think worse of me than me, and there's no place for my brain to be pointed than inward, thinking about what's going on with me. My very life depends upon my constant thought of others and how I may help meet their needs. My life is contingent on getting out of self and thinking of others, and not just thinking about them like, let me take their inventory, like I'm watching those trash TV and judging. No. And how I might help meet their needs. And what is the need that ultimately needs to be met. Of course, we can show up, we can help people move, we can be of love and service in that way, kind, compassionate listening. But if they are an addict or they're an alcoholic or there's somebody who sees themselves in this book as it relates to whatever the illness that brings them to this all-inclusive study, if there's somebody like that, what do they need? Nothing less than a spiritual experience. Nothing less than a spiritual experience. How can I help meet their needs? They need a relationship with God. They need that relationship with power. That is what they need, and that is what I have to offer. And of course, we have to show up kind, compassionate, considerate, that our deportment shouts that we have a new answer, so we're not yelling, no axes to grind, no people to please, but we show up as an expression of God's love, armed with these tools, armed with facts about ourselves. And we can do that in all areas of our life. Over to you, Terry. Pew, pew.
Yeah, definitely not a selfish program, right? It's more like helping others so that I could get out of the way so that God could work his magic program, right? I don't know, man. That paragraph kind of just always hits me, especially when I'm being selfish and I'm watching all the time with my 10 step. I watch myself being selfish. And then sometimes these random quotes in the big book, I would have a God thought you could say, which says, my very life depends on the like constant thought of others. Doesn't say just newcomers, doesn't say just alcoholics. It says others. So I assume that's every other God's child, right? So, yeah. You may already ask yourself, why is it that all of us become so very ill from drinking? Doubtless you are curious to discover the how and the why in the face of expert opinion. Dr. Silky saying that we're screwed, basically, right? Saying we're doomed. To the contrary, we have recovered. What's that witchcrafty word? Recovered from a hopeless condition of mind and body. If you're an alcoholic, that's a statement. Am I an alcoholic? Yes, I am. Who wants to get over it? That's another statement. Put a little question mark after that. Do I want to get over it? Do I want to get over this nicotine habit? Yes, I do. You may already be asking, what do I have to do? Let me just read it. It is the purpose of this book to answer such questions specifically. So before we tell you, we'll tell you later. That's basically what they do, right? This is a fun chapter. We shall tell you what we have done. Well, DONE, what did they do? I mean, they don't really explain it until later, but what I did is I made it an admission in step one. Step two, I was willing to believe. Step three, I made the decision to actually go through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, 4 through 9. Right. What I did is I wrote out an inventory I was facing and being rid of the things that are blocking me. And the fifth step, I literally pocket my pride and told someone every dark cranny of my story, everything that I felt guilt, shame, and remorse about. I told to one other person. I'll tell you this. If you're new here and you're living a life of rigorous dishonesty, if you're honest with just one person, just one, you're gonna get a spiritual experience. That was my experience in the beginning, right? The 6 and 7, making amends and helping others with 10. This is what I've done. Oh, there's a little guy. Before we go into a detailed discussion, it may be well to summarize some points as we see them. Back to you, Paige. Pew, pew, pew.
Pew, pew, pew. And I love that you were speaking about, who are we helping? God's kids. And it got me thinking of this line. And I think it's an important line, and it's a line that is just going to ruin some of our days. So here to do that. And it is that line that I will never look into the eyes of somebody that God does not love. And some of you are like, where are my blinders? I'm not looking. I'm not looking. That's not the takeaway. The presence of God is within everyone. And I just need to look. And can I treat them as if they are God's children with love and care and respect? And that doesn't mean I'm a doormat. I can be honest about what my limitations are so that I can love them, even if it's loving them at a distance. And yes, it goes on to say why it is that all of us became so very ill from drinking. And why did all of us become so ill from drinking? And I believe the illness part that it's referring to there is the physical allergy. Why all of us, once we started, we could not stop and ended up drinking ourselves into health problems, into pain, into suffering, into degradation. And it says, when it talks about how we have recovered, as Terry pointed out, recovered, not cured, but the mental obsession is gone as the result of the course of action from a hopeless. And I always want to emphasize hopeless, because when I can see the hopelessness of my predicament in step one, I'm willing to grab a hold of the hope that is available in the rest of the steps, to be honest with you. Condition of mind and body. Now, that hopeless condition of body, I'm going to start there. That is the physical allergy. That hopeless condition of body that once I start, I need more. That I can't control the amount that I take. That I start and I take that first, it demands a second. The second insists on four. The fourth will not relent until I've had eight. And the eighth is just screaming at me until I've had 16. And so on, and so on, and so on. Now, when we talk about that hopeless condition of body or of mind, what we're talking about, and if you're writing in your book, you can make a little note that we're talking about the obsession of the mind. The thought that I have when I am as sober as I am today that takes me back again and again and again to the first drink, the first drug, the first compulsive behavior, the first hit of our vape. And by the way, I like God separated me from nicotine. Like I didn't quit. I'm only lightly teasing. I'm giving no one any guff because honestly, I could not have quit. Like nothing less than God was going to help on me, and it really was God doing it. I'm not an ex-smoker. God took nicotine from me. Uh, but when we talk about that hopeless condition of mind, we're talking about that mental obsession, and that's what makes this thing hopeless. It is not simply that once I start, I cannot stop. That's not good. But what makes it hopeless is I know that. And I know beyond a shadow of a doubt I can't go back to it. And yet I do. And I love it's like, hey, it's Terry saying, am I? Do I? Am I an alcoholic or am I whatever brings you to the study? And do I? But it says, what do I have to do? And I want to emphasize do, because annoyingly, this is a program of action. Like we have a whole chapter called Into Action, which is rude because they don't have like an into just like talking about it a whole bunch or into avoiding the action by ducking out and hiding from your sponsor. That's not a chapter. They don't have a resting on our laurels chapter, which is rude. The closest thing we get to a nap is the quiet hour. And that's like preceded and post-seeded by a bunch of action. So, man, it's do. It's what do I have to do? I've got to take action because if you're like me, you know that you can't stay well based on what I think, what I feel, what I believe. I get well based on the actions that I take, regardless of my opinions on them. And I love it. The purpose, the whole point of this book is to specifically tell somebody like me what I need to do. Also, purpose of this book. What a great name for a big book study. Perhaps one that happens at Wednesday nights at this same Zoom code, David G. And I think they're kicking off in 2 employers. So stay tuned for that. Look at that, doing announcements right in the middle of the big book study. I'll keep coming back. I hope you do too. And I just want to point out when it says, we shall tell you what we have done. That to me is the epitome of no holier than thou. The 12 steps as they're written on page 59, top of page 60, they are reports of actions taken. Here is what we have done. That's why they're plural post tense. We admitted. We came to believe. I know it doesn't say we came, but came to believe. It is what we did. Let us show you what we did. Not this like intellectual page with her smarty pants, whatever the heck, going all like, oh, here's what I think you should do. Let me fix man. I have read some wordy books and I have indulged in windy arguments. Allow me to tell you what you need to do. And maybe I'll get paid for it. None of that is appealing to any of us, right? Man, you get doctor's orders. There's something about me. I'm like, I'm gonna do the opposite. Paige, this is serious. I'm not listening. La 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 la. That's just how I am. And so instead, the book and the recovered members were called to show up with humility, let me show you the actions that I have taken. And and I think, yeah, I think that's so important. I don't ask sponsees by and large to do things that I have not done. And they can tell. It's almost it's funny when I have somebody ask me to sponsor them, and then they are shocked when I'm like inventory. Like I'm shocked that they're shocked. I got a hoodie that says inventory behooves me. Girl, we're writing inventory. Like that's just happening. And I am able to do that because I have had to take my inventory. I'm able to help with amends because I've had to make amends. Um, and so, yeah. And so, what we're going to get into, Terry, do you think we want to get into that next paragraph? Yeah, let's do it. You feeling? You're feeling. All right. It says, how many times have people said to us? Now, these are some points that are describing ignorance of alcoholism. Not bad, not, I was going to say maleficent, which I was surprised that was the word that came to mind. Not malicious is probably the word that I was going for. That people who do not have this understanding. Now, keep in mind, these are people who are ignorant of alcoholism or ignorant of this illness. And have I thought or felt these things having a first-hand experience with it? How many times have people said to us, I can take it or leave it alone? Why can't he? Um, why don't you drink like a gentleman or quit? Some of y'all know nothing in my life has ever happened in a ladylike fashion, ever. Uh, that fellow can't handle his liquor. Why don't you try beer and wine? Lay off the hard stuff. His willpower must be weak. He could stop if he wanted to. Now, here's where I want to take off my alcoholic and drug addict hat and I want to put on my Al Anon hat. On it goes. She's such a sweet girl. I am. You'd think he'd stop for her sake. I know. I'm just, oh, why didn't he? Never mind what I was doing. Al Anon hat off, alcoholic hat back on. She said, so the doctor told him that if he ever drank again, it would kill him. But there he is, all lit up again. Now, these are, and it talks about how these are commonplace observations on drinkers, which we hear all the time, back of them. So driving them is a world of ignorance and misunderstanding. And I point that out because it is not that they're bad, it is not that they're wrong, but we hear things just like that in the rooms. Call your sponsor before you take a drink. Play the tape to the end. Oh, he must not have wanted it enough. Have you hit your bottom? Are you done yet? You know, these things that we hear from people like us who have suffered that are based out of a misunderstanding of alcoholism or the illness of addiction, that I do not have the human power to either stop or to moderate. It is not something I'm capable of. Over to you, Terry. Pew, and yeah, I think we'll wrap it up with you. Pew pew.
Yeah, pew pew. I love this paragraph, um, especially with uh, smashing home, am I this addict or not? I'll do it for nicotine here. So, and I'm going to take statements and turn them into questions, and I recommend that you do for whatever is troubling you today. It says I could take it or leave it alone. So can I take nicotine and leave it alone? No, I can't. What about alcohol? Can you take it or leave it alone? No. Why can't he? Why don't you drink like a gentleman or quit? Can anyone smoke crack like a gentleman and quit? Could I? Nah. No. Can I smoke nicotine like a cigar or a cigarette playing poker with my friends and stop? No, I can't. Why don't you try beer or wine? Well, why don't you try the patches, Terry? No, it doesn't work. Right? Lay off the hard stuff, right? My willpower is weak. As long as your willpower weak when it comes to nicotine, Terry, yeah, it is. Is my willpower weak when it comes to cocaine, opiates? This is what I did for the ones that I lost control with physically and mentally. We'll get into the mental later. I got I did this with cocaine, alcohol, opiates. I done it with sleeping pills, and I done it. Another one, Xanax. Those are my big five. Now I guess there's six. Damn nicotine. I guess I'm a garbage head, right? Okay. Uh, he could stop if he wanted to. Can you stop if you want to when it comes to drinking or whatever fits your bill? What about nicotine for me? Can I stop if I wanted to? No, I can't. This is really step one is designed to smash me. Just smashing to my gut, to my soul, that I'm going to make an admission on page 30 that I have a nicotine problem, that I have no power, choice, or control with nicotine. And I'm happy to do this right now with nicotine. I've never done it with nicotine before. She's such a sweet girl. This is my wife. She was yelling at me the other day about nicotine. I should think he would stop for her sake. Now, can I stop smoking nicotine for her sake? No, absolutely not. I was on the phone with a sponsee and his family and his girlfriend got on the phone and was asking me, what should I do? Should I have him call me if he's about to go out and drinking? Maybe I could stop him. And I kind of chuckled a little bit, I guess. And I said, look, let me give you an example. If I was sitting in front of a judge today and this judge said, Terry, I'm gonna give you two options. Your choice. I'm gonna give you 30 years in jail or you quit drinking and drugging forever. I'm gonna stop and think about it. I was like, "Oh, hold on, forever? Forever?" And I explained that to her. I said, beyond, we are beyond human aid. The love for my son, the love for my family, the love for my wife, the love for my friends and the people I work with. Unfortunately, it's not going to stop me from taking a drink or a drug. I'm beyond human aid. So for her sake, unfortunately, I'm not, right? That's one of the reasons why my wife allowed me to continuously work with others one on one rather than speak at meetings. She allows me to do that because she understands that it does give me immunity from drinking. I've explained that to her. She understands it. She has seen a difference in me when I do intensive work with other alcoholics. Now I had to explain that to her and show her what I was doing. Right? When it came to speaking at meetings, it became something that what's called spiritual intoxication I went through with that stuff. And she knew that I was doing it based on self-will, right? So it says, where was I? The doctor told him if he ever drank again, it would kill him. Okay, I have experience with this line. I had a doctor point blank tell me to my face, Terry, if you ever drink or use again, you will die. I had 5 bypass open heart surgery because of drinking and cocaine and all other mind-altering substances. A doctor point blank told me to my face, you will die. Did that keep me sober? Well, what is the next sentence is? But there he is, all lit up again, and that's what my experience 2 months later after that. Use your own experience and I don't know, I guess what changed my recovery was really, and I said it earlier, Paige mentioned it, I'm really trying to look at this book as a book of mirrors. And if I take statements or anything, and then I turn it into a consideration or a question, and really the book starts to talk to me. And it's talking to me about nicotine right now, and I'm seriously, it's hitting home right now. So maybe I'm gonna continue praying for the willingness, and maybe you'll be an ex-nicotine user after this, and my very life will depend on my constant thought of others and how I can meet their needs. Back to you, Paige. Pew pew pew.
Pew, pew, pew. Awesome. Thank you so much. And what we'll do is we'll stop the recording and I'll set it so we can all unmute and wrap up with the Serenity Prayer. Thank you guys for coming.